The sound of breaking glass shattered the silence of the Dusty Rose Saloon, and Ben Harrison knew his life had hit rock bottom when he could not even afford to pay for the whiskey that now stained his worn shirt. It was August 1878 in La Junta, Colorado, and the heat seemed to press down on everything like a physical weight, making the shame burn even hotter in his chest as the bartender glared at him with undisguised contempt. "Get out, Harrison," the man growled, his thick arms crossed over his barrel chest. "You have been drinking on credit for 2 weeks now, and I will not have it any more. You are nothing but a washed-up gambler who cannot even hold a decent hand." Ben stumbled toward the swinging doors, his vision blurred not just from the alcohol but from the tears he refused to let fall. Once, he had been someone in this town. Once, he had owned a profitable cattle ranch with his father, had been respected, had been trusted. But that was before his father died, before the debts came calling, before he discovered that the man he had idolized had gambled away nearly everything they owned. Ben had tried to save it, had tried to win back their fortune at the card tables, but he had only made things worse. Now the ranch was gone, sold to cover debts he could never hope to repay, and he was left with nothing but a reputation as a drunk and a failure. The afternoon sun hit him like a hammer when he stepped outside, and he squinted against the brightness, his head pounding. The main street of La Junta stretched before him, dusty and busy with the usual traffic of wagons, horses, and people going about their business. None of them looked at him. They had stopped looking at him months ago. He made his way toward the boarding house where he rented a small room, his boots kicking up little clouds of dust with each unsteady step. The landlady would be after him for rent soon, he knew. Everyone wanted something from him that he could not give. Everyone had given up on him. Hell, he had given up on himself. As he rounded the corner near the general store, he collided hard with someone, sending packages tumbling to the ground. "Watch where you are going," he muttered, dropping to his knees to help gather the scattered items before he even looked up. "I am so sorry," a woman's voice said, and there was something in her tone that made him pause. It was not angry or annoyed. It was genuinely apologetic, as if she thought the collision might have been her fault. Ben looked up and found himself staring into the warmest brown eyes he had ever seen. The woman kneeling across from him could not have been more than 22 or 23, with dark hair pulled back in a practical bun, and a simple blue dress that had seen better days. There was a smudge of flour on her cheek, and she was looking at him with an expression he had not seen directed his way in longer than he could remember. She was looking at him like he was a person, not a problem. "No, it was my fault," he managed, his words less slurred than they had been moments ago. He gathered up a package of coffee beans and handed it to her, noticing the calluses on her hands. She worked hard, whoever she was. "I was not paying attention." "Neither was I," she said with a small smile. "I was thinking about how I am going to explain to Mrs. Chen that I need more time to pay for these supplies." She glanced down at the packages between them, and Ben saw a flicker of worry cross her face before she pushed it away. He helped her stand, collecting the last of her parcels. "You are new in town," he said, though it was not really a question. He would have remembered her. "I arrived 3 weeks ago," she confirmed, balancing the packages in her arms. "I am Lucy Patterson. I am trying to start a bakery in the old miller's shop down by the creek." "Well, trying is probably too generous a word. Mostly I am failing at starting a bakery." There was no self-pity in her voice, just a frank assessment of her situation, and Ben found himself curious despite his own misery. "Ben Harrison," he said, then waited for the recognition, for the judgment to cloud those warm eyes, but Lucy just nodded. "It is nice to meet you, Ben Harrison, though I do apologize for nearly knocking you over." You did not, he said automatically. I knocked into you. She tilted her head, studying him with an intensity that made him want to look away. I think we probably both were not watching where we were going. Sometimes that happens when a person has too much on their mind. Before Ben could respond, a sharp voice cut through the afternoon air. Miss Patterson, I see you have the supplies. I trust you will be able to pay for them this week. Mrs. Chen, the owner of the general store, stood in the doorway with her arms crossed, her expression severe. She was known as a fair woman but a tough one, and she did not extend credit lightly. Lucy's smile faltered just slightly. I will have the money by Friday, Mrs. Chen, I promise. I have orders for 3 pies and 2 loaves of bread, and once I deliver those— Friday, Mrs. Chen interrupted. Not a day later, Miss Patterson. I like you, but I cannot run a business on promises. I understand, Lucy said quietly. Thank you for your patience. Mrs. Chen's expression softened just a fraction. Your bread is good, girl. Best I have tasted in years. You just need to get more people to try it. Maybe set up a stand at the church social on Sunday. That is a wonderful idea, Lucy said, brightening. Thank you. As Mrs. Chen disappeared back into her store, Ben found himself still standing there, watching Lucy juggle her packages. Can I help you carry those? He heard himself ask. Lucy looked at him, and again there was that lack of judgment, that simple kindness. That would be very kind of you if you do not mind. They walked together down the dusty street toward the creek, and Ben found himself more steady on his feet than he had been in weeks. Maybe it was the shock of the collision, or maybe it was the way Lucy chattered easily about her plans for the bakery, about the recipes she wanted to try, about how she had saved for 5 years working as a cook in Denver before she had enough money to strike out on her own. Why La Junta? Ben asked as they approached the old miller's shop, a small wooden building that had been empty for as long as he could remember. It seemed like a place that needed a bakery, Lucy said simply. And I liked the name, La Junta, the junction. It felt like a place where paths cross, where new things begin. She fumbled with the key in the lock, and Ben shifted the packages he carried to help her get the door open. Inside, the shop was sparse but clean. There was a large oven that Lucy had clearly been working to restore, a wooden counter, some shelves, and a small table with 2 chairs. Flour dusted nearly every surface, and the smell of yeast and sugar hung faintly in the air. It is not much yet, Lucy said, a hint of defensiveness creeping into her voice as she took the packages from him and set them on the counter. But it will be. I know it will be. Ben looked around the small space and felt something twist in his chest. It reminded him of his own dreams back when he still had them. I think it is already something, he said quietly. You are building this yourself. That takes courage. Lucy turned to look at him, really look at him, and Ben felt exposed under her gaze. You sound like someone who knows about building things, she said. I used to, he admitted. Before I destroyed everything I had. He had not meant to say it, had not meant to be so honest with this stranger, but something about Lucy made the words come easier. She did not respond immediately, just moved to the small stove in the corner and began to prepare coffee. My father used to say that the only thing truly destroyed is the thing you stop trying to rebuild, she said as she worked. He was a carpenter. He taught me that even the most broken things can be made whole again if you are willing to do the work. Some things are too broken, Ben said, but there was less conviction in his voice than there should have been. Lucy poured 2 cups of coffee and handed him one. It was strong and hot, and Ben realized with a start that it was the first thing besides whiskey he had tasted in days. I do not believe that, she said firmly. I think people give up too easily. I think they decide something is ruined and stop looking for the ways to fix it. They sat at the small table, and Lucy told him about her father, who had died 2 years ago, and her mother, who had passed when Lucy was just a girl. She told him about working in kitchens and restaurants, saving every penny, dreaming of having her own place. And somehow, in the telling of her story, Ben found himself sharing his own. He told her about his father, about the ranch, about the gambling and the debt, and the slow, horrible slide into the person he had become. "I am not that person anymore," he said finally, staring into his empty coffee cup. "I am not the man my father wanted me to be. I am not the man I wanted to be." "Then who do you want to be now?" Lucy asked. Ben looked up at her, startled by the directness of the question. "I do not know if it matters what I want. I have made too many mistakes." "Everyone makes mistakes," Lucy said. She leaned forward, her eyes intense. "But those mistakes do not have to define you. You can choose who you want to be, Ben Harrison. Right now, today, this moment." "It is not that simple," he protested, but even as he said it, he felt something stirring in his chest, something he had thought was long dead. "It is exactly that simple," Lucy countered. "The hard part is not deciding. The hard part is following through. The hard part is believing you are worth the effort." Ben felt tears prick at his eyes, and he looked away, ashamed. "I do not know if I can believe that." "Then let me believe it for you," Lucy said softly, "until you can believe it yourself." He looked at her then, this woman he had known for less than an hour, and saw something in her face that shook him to his core. She meant it. She actually meant it. This stranger was offering him something he had not had in so long he had forgotten what it felt like. She was offering him faith. "Why?" he asked, his voice rough. "You do not even know me." Lucy smiled, and it was like the sun breaking through clouds. "I know enough. I know you stopped to help me pick up my packages. I know you carried them for me even though you were clearly having a difficult day. I know you have not given up completely, or you would not be here right now, drinking coffee and talking to me. You would have found a bottle somewhere." She was right, and the realization hit him like cold water. He had been heading toward another drink, another day lost to the bottle, but instead he was here. He was talking. He was feeling something other than despair. "I do not know where to start," he admitted. "Start by coming back tomorrow," Lucy said. "I need help fixing the sign out front. The wood is rotting and the letters have faded. If you can do carpentry work, I can pay you in bread and coffee. It is not much, but it is something." "I used to do carpentry with my father," Ben said slowly, "before the ranch took up all our time." "Then tomorrow," Lucy said, 9 in the morning. "We will start with the sign." Ben stood, feeling unsteady but in a different way than before. This was not the unsteadiness of drink but of possibility, of something shifting in his life that he did not quite understand yet. "Why are you doing this?" he asked one more time. Lucy walked him to the door, and the afternoon sun was gentler now, less harsh. "Because everyone deserves someone who believes in them," she said. "And because I think you are worth believing in, Ben Harrison, even if you do not see it yet." That night, Ben lay in his small room at the boarding house and did not go looking for a bottle. He thought about Lucy's words, about her certainty, about the way she had looked at him like he was someone who mattered. He thought about the sign he would fix, about the smell of coffee and bread, about the possibility that maybe, just maybe, he could be more than what he had become. When he arrived at Lucy's bakery the next morning at 9 sharp, clean and sober for the first time in months, she greeted him with a smile that made his chest ache. "You came," she said, and there was such genuine pleasure in her voice that Ben felt something inside him straighten, like a plant turning toward the sun. "I said I would," he replied. "Yes, you did," Lucy agreed. "And that already makes you a man of your word. That is a good place to start." They worked on the sign for most of the morning, Ben carefully removing the rotted wood, and replacing it with fresh boards Lucy had scrounged from the old lumber yard. His hands remembered the work, remembered the satisfaction of creating something solid and real. Lucy brought him water and fresh bread with butter, and they talked while he worked. She asked him about the ranch, about what it had been like before everything fell apart, and Ben found himself remembering the good times instead of just the bad. He told her about teaching the ranch hands to break horses, about the satisfaction of bringing in a good herd, about watching the sun rise over the grazing land with his father beside him. "You loved it," Lucy observed, kneading dough at the table she had set up in the doorway so she could watch him work. "I did," Ben admitted. "I thought I would do it my whole life. I thought I would pass it on to my own children someday." "What happened to the land?" Lucy asked. "Who bought it?" "A man named Samuel Winters. He has been buying up properties all over the territory. He got it for less than it was worth because I was desperate." The old bitterness tried to rise up, but somehow, with his hands busy and the sun warm on his shoulders, it had less power over him. "That must have been very painful," Lucy said quietly. "It was," Ben said. "It still is. But talking about it now with you, it feels different. It feels like something that happened, not something that is still happening, if that makes sense." "It makes perfect sense," Lucy said. She had finished kneading and was shaping the dough into loaves. Pain is like that. When you hold it close and do not let it breathe, it stays sharp forever. But when you share it, when you let it be what it is, it starts to change. It does not go away, but it becomes something you can carry instead of something that carries you. Ben paused in his work, a fresh board in his hands, and looked at her. "You are very wise for someone so young." Lucy laughed, and the sound was like music. "I am not wise. I have just had to learn some hard lessons. Losing my parents, working jobs where people treated me like I was invisible, saving money only to have setbacks drain it away again. I have had to figure out how to keep going when everything felt impossible." "How did you do it?" Ben asked, genuinely curious. "I decided that I would not let my circumstances define me," Lucy said. She set the shaped loaves aside to rise and wiped her hands on her apron. "I decided that no matter what happened, I would keep working toward the life I wanted. Some days that meant just getting out of bed. Other days it meant working 16 hours straight. But every day I moved forward, even if it was just an inch." Ben turned back to his work, but her words stayed with him, settling into his bones like warmth. He carefully lettered the new sign, painting Patterson's Bakery in bold black letters. Lucy came to stand beside him when he finished, and they both looked at it together. "It is beautiful," she said softly. "Thank you, Ben." "It is just a sign," he said, but he felt a flush of pride anyway. "It is not just a sign," Lucy corrected. "It is a promise. It says that this place matters, that what I am building here matters. You helped me make that promise visible." Over the next few weeks, Ben came to the bakery every day. At first, he just did odd jobs fixing shelves, repairing the oven door, building a proper display case for Lucy's baked goods. She paid him in food and coffee, and sometimes, when she had a bit extra, in coins that she insisted he take even when he protested. "You are working," she said firmly when he tried to refuse. "You deserve to be paid for your work." Slowly, he began to feel human again. He stopped drinking entirely, though some nights the craving made his hands shake. On those nights he would walk to the bakery, and Lucy would somehow sense why he was there. She would make coffee, and they would sit together in the warm, yeast-scented air, and she would talk about her plans until the worst of the craving passed. "You do not have to do this," he told her one night when the need for whiskey was particularly bad. "You do not owe me anything." "I know," Lucy said, "but friends help each other. And we are friends, are we not?" "Are we?" Ben asked, and there was a vulnerability in his voice that surprised him. Lucy reached across the table and took his hand. Her touch was warm and steady, and Ben felt anchored by it. "Yes," she said simply. "We are." As the weeks turned into months, Ben found himself looking forward to each day in a way he had not experienced in years. He woke up with purpose, with a reason to shave and put on clean clothes, with anticipation for the work he would do and the time he would spend with Lucy. The townspeople began to notice the change in him. The bartender who had thrown him out actually nodded to him on the street one day. The landlady stopped glaring at him when he paid his rent on time, money he had earned with his own hands. But more than any of that, Ben noticed the way he felt about Lucy changing, deepening into something that both terrified and exhilarated him. He found himself watching her hands as she worked, noticing the way she hummed while she baked, memorizing the sound of her laugh. He realized he was falling in love with her, and the knowledge made him feel like he was standing on the edge of a cliff. He did not deserve her. He was still the man who had gambled away his inheritance, who had drunk himself into oblivion, who had let everyone down. Yes, he was sober now, yes, he was working, but what if he failed again? What if he let her down the way he had let everyone else down? One afternoon in early November, as they worked together to prepare for the church social that weekend, Ben finally voiced his fears. They were alone in the bakery, the autumn sun slanting through the windows, and Lucy was teaching him how to braid dough for a special bread she wanted to make. "Your hands are too tense," she said, guiding his fingers gently. "You have to be firm but gentle, like this." Her hands on his were almost more than he could bear, and Ben pulled away suddenly, nearly knocking over the dough. "I cannot do this," he said, and he was not talking about the bread anymore. Lucy looked at him, her expression calm but questioning. "Cannot do what, Ben?" "This," he gestured between them at the bakery, at everything they had built together over the past 3 months. "I cannot keep pretending that I am someone I am not. I cannot keep pretending that I am good enough to be here with you." "Who says you are pretending?" Lucy asked. "I am saying it," Ben said, his voice rising with frustration. "Lucy, you do not understand. I am not the man you think I am. I am not this person who fixes things and shows up on time and works hard. That is not who I am. I am the person who destroys things. I am the person who fails." "No," Lucy said, and her voice was steel. "That is who you were when you had given up on yourself. That is not who you are now." "You do not know that," Ben said desperately. "What if I fall again? What if I go back to drinking? What if I let you down?" Lucy stood and walked around the table until she was standing directly in front of him. She reached up and took his face in her flour-dusted hands, forcing him to look at her. "Ben Harrison, listen to me. You are not defined by your worst moments. You are not the sum of your failures. You are defined by what you choose to do right now, today, in this moment." "But what if I choose wrong?" Ben whispered. "Then you choose again tomorrow," Lucy said. "And the day after that, and the day after that. That is what life is, Ben. It is choosing over and over who you want to be." "I want to be someone worthy of you," Ben said, and the words came from somewhere deep inside him, somewhere raw and honest. Lucy's eyes softened. "You already are. Why can you not see that?" "Because I see all my mistakes," Ben said. "I see all the ways I have failed." "Then let me tell you what I see," Lucy said. She did not move her hands from his face, and Ben felt like he was drowning in her gaze. "I see a man who shows up every single day, even when it is hard. I see a man who works with his whole heart, who takes pride in what he creates. I see a man who has not had a single drink in 3 months, even though I know some days the wanting nearly breaks him. I see a man who is kind, who listens, who makes me laugh. I see a man who is rebuilding himself piece by piece with courage and determination. That is who you are, Ben. That is the man I see." "Lucy," Ben breathed, and her name was a prayer. "I am in love with you," Lucy said, and the simple honesty of it shattered something in Ben's chest. "I have been falling in love with you since that first day when you helped me pick up my packages. I am in love with the man you are becoming, yes, but also with the man you have always been underneath all that pain and fear." Ben pulled her hands from his face and held them in his own, and he was shaking. "I love you," he said, and it was the truest thing he had ever spoken. "God help me, Lucy. I love you so much it terrifies me." "Then be terrified with me," Lucy said, and she smiled through tears he had not realized she was crying. "Because I am terrified too. I am terrified of failing at this bakery, of running out of money, of not being good enough. But I am more terrified of not trying. I am more terrified of not loving you because I was too afraid of getting hurt." Ben pulled her into his arms then, and she came willingly, fitting against him like she had been made to be there. He buried his face in her hair, breathing in the scent of sugar and flour and something uniquely Lucy, and he felt something inside him that had been broken for so long begin to heal. "I will spend every day trying to be worthy of this," he promised against her hair. "I will spend every day trying to be the man you see when you look at me." "You already are," Lucy said again, her voice muffled against his chest. "You just need to see it yourself." They stood like that for a long time, holding each other in the afternoon light, and Ben felt peace settle over him like a blanket. This was what he had been missing, what he had been searching for at the bottom of bottles and in the shuffle of cards. This connection, this love, this belief that he could be more than his worst moments. When they finally pulled apart, Lucy was smiling, and Ben could not help but smile back. "So what do we do now?" he asked. "Now," Lucy said, picking up the dough they had abandoned, "you learn to braid bread. And then we go to the church social on Sunday as a couple, and we let the whole town see that Ben Harrison is a man worth knowing." The church social was held in the town square, with tables set up under the cottonwood trees and the whole community coming together to share food and fellowship. Lucy had baked 6 different kinds of bread, 3 pies, and a batch of cinnamon rolls that made people stop in their tracks when they caught the scent. Ben helped her set up their table, arranging everything just so, and he felt people watching them. He knew what they were thinking. They were wondering why Lucy Patterson, who was smart and beautiful and talented, would be with Ben Harrison, the town drunk, the failure, the man who had lost everything. He could see the questions in their eyes, the judgment, and he felt the old shame trying to creep back in. But then Lucy took his hand, right there in front of everyone, and she smiled at him with such open affection that Ben felt 10 feet tall. "You are with me," she said quietly, squeezing his fingers. "That is all that matters." The social was more successful than either of them had dared hope. People who had been skeptical about Lucy's bakery tried her goods and immediately wanted to place orders. Ben found himself talking to men he had not spoken to in months, discussing carpentry work and odd jobs they needed done. Several people specifically sought him out to compliment the work he had done on the bakery sign and the display case visible through the shop window. "Heard you have been doing good work for Miss Patterson," old Mr. Whitmore said, his weathered face serious. "I've got a barn that needs repairs before winter. Would you be interested in the job?" Ben looked at Lucy, who nodded encouragingly. "Yes, sir," he said. "I would be very interested." "Good," Mr. Whitmore said. "Come by tomorrow and we will discuss terms and Harrison. It is good to see you doing well. Your father would be proud." The words hit Ben harder than he expected, and he had to blink back sudden tears. "Thank you, sir," he managed. As the social wore on, Ben and Lucy worked their table together, falling into an easy rhythm. She would charm customers with her warm smile and descriptions of her baking, and he would wrap purchases and make change. And sometimes their hands would brush, and they would share secret smiles. It felt domestic and right, and Ben let himself imagine a future where this was his life, where he got to stand beside Lucy every day and build something together. When the evening finally wound down and they were packing up their empty dishes and the coins they had earned, Lucy was practically glowing with happiness. "We did it," she said. "Ben, we actually did it. I have enough orders to keep me baking for 2 weeks straight." "You did it," Ben corrected, but Lucy shook her head. "We did it," she insisted. "I could not have done any of this without you. The sign, the display case, the shelves, your help today. We are a team, Ben." "A team," Ben repeated, and he liked the sound of it. He liked being part of something again, being needed, being useful. They walked back to the bakery together in the soft autumn twilight, carrying their empty baskets and full hearts. When they reached the door, Lucy turned to him, her face serious. "Will you stay for dinner?" she asked. "I have stew cooking upstairs." Ben had not been upstairs to Lucy's living quarters before. She rented the small apartment above the bakery, and she had kept that space private. The invitation felt significant, and Ben understood what she was really asking. She was asking him into her life, into her world, fully and completely. "I would love to," he said. The apartment was small but cozy, with a narrow bed in one corner, a small table by the window, and a kitchen area with a stove where a pot of stew simmered. There were curtains on the windows and a rag rug on the floor, and everything was neat and clean and so perfectly Lucy that Ben felt his heart swell. They ate dinner together, talking about the success of the social and laughing about Mrs. Henderson's reaction when she tried Lucy's apple pie. It was easy and comfortable, and when they finished eating, Ben helped Lucy wash the dishes, standing beside her at the small sink while the last light faded from the sky. "I should go," Ben said when the last dish was dried and put away, but he did not move toward the door. "You could stay," Lucy said quietly, "if you wanted to." Ben turned to her, his heart pounding. "Lucy, I do not want to rush this. I do not want to do anything that would hurt you or make you think less of me." "I could never think less of you," Lucy said. She stepped closer to him, close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. "But you are right. We should not rush. I just wanted you to know that when you are ready, when we are both ready, I am not going anywhere. I am here, Ben. I am here and I am not leaving." Ben cupped her face in his hands, marveling at the softness of her skin, at the trust in her eyes. "You are the best thing that has ever happened to me," he said. "I will spend the rest of my life proving that I deserve you." "You already deserve me," Lucy said, but she was smiling. "But I will let you spend the rest of your life showing me anyway." He kissed her then, soft and gentle, pouring all his love and gratitude and hope into the contact. Lucy kissed him back, her arms winding around his neck, and Ben felt like he was finally home. Over the next several months, Ben and Lucy's lives intertwined more and more. Ben took the job working on Mr. Whitmore's barn, and the work led to more jobs. Word spread that Ben Harrison was reliable, skilled, and sober, and suddenly he had more carpentry work than he could handle. He started saving money, carefully setting aside every penny he did not need for basic expenses. Lucy's bakery thrived. She became known throughout La Junta and the surrounding area for her bread and pastries, and she hired a young girl named Sarah to help her with the increased workload. Ben built her a larger oven and expanded her display case, and together they painted the bakery a cheerful yellow that made people smile when they walked past. They were careful with each other, taking their time, building their relationship on a foundation of friendship and trust. They had dinner together most nights, alternating between the bakery and the boarding house dining room. They took walks along the creek on Sunday afternoons, talking about everything and nothing. Ben met Lucy's friends, and Lucy slowly helped Ben rebuild connections with people in town he had alienated during his drinking days. It was not always easy. There were nights when Ben still craved whiskey, when the old feelings of worthlessness tried to drag him down. There were days when Lucy was overwhelmed by the demands of running a business, when she snapped at him or cried from exhaustion. But they worked through it together, learning each other's rhythms, learning how to support each other through the hard moments. One cold evening in February, 6 months after they had first collided on the dusty street, Ben asked Lucy to take a walk with him despite the chill. They bundled up and wandered down to the creek, where ice formed delicate patterns along the banks, and their breath came out in white puffs. "I have been thinking," Ben said as they walked, his hand warm in hers even through their gloves, "about the future, about what I want." "What do you want?" Lucy asked, and there was a catch in her voice like she knew this conversation was important. "I want to buy back my father's land," Ben said. "I have been saving, and I have been talking to Samuel Winters. He is willing to sell it back to me for a fair price. It will take most of what I have saved, and I will need to take out a loan for the rest, but I can do it, Lucy. I can get the ranch back." Lucy stopped walking and turned to face him, her eyes shining. "Ben, that is wonderful. That is everything you have been working toward." "It is," Ben agreed, "but it is not all I want." He took both her hands in his, suddenly nervous. "Lucy, I want that land, but I do not want it for myself alone. I want it for us. I want to build a life there with you. I want to rebuild the ranch house and raise cattle and maybe have a family someday. I want to wake up every morning next to you and know that we built something good together." Lucy's breath caught. "Ben, are you asking what I think you are asking?" Ben dropped to one knee right there on the frozen ground beside the creek, and he pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a simple gold band with a small diamond that had taken him weeks to afford. "Lucy Patterson, you saved my life. You believed in me when no one else did, including myself. You saw the man I could be and loved me anyway. Will you marry me? Will you be my wife and my partner and the person I get to love for the rest of my life?" Tears streamed down Lucy's face, freezing on her cheeks in the cold air. "Yes," she said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." Ben stood and pulled her into his arms, kissing her deeply while the winter wind swirled around them. The ring fit perfectly on her finger, and they stood there for a long time, holding each other and dreaming of the future they would build. They were married in April, when the prairie grass was turning green and wildflowers dotted the landscape like colorful jewels. The whole town turned out for the wedding, held in the small church on the hill. Ben wore a new suit that he had bought with money he earned, and Lucy wore a simple white dress with flowers in her hair. When they exchanged vows, promising to love and support each other through whatever life brought, Ben's voice was steady and sure. "I stand before you today as a different man than I was a year ago," he said during his vows, speaking not just to Lucy but to everyone gathered. "I was lost and broken, and I had given up on myself. But Lucy saw something in me that I could not see. She believed in me when I had forgotten how to believe in myself. She is the reason I am here today, sober and whole and ready to build a life worth living. Lucy, I promise you that I will spend every day trying to be the man you saw in me even when I was at my lowest. I will love you, support you, and stand beside you through everything. You are my salvation and my home." There was not a dry eye in the church, and when the reverend pronounced them husband and wife, the applause was thunderous. They had their reception at the bakery, which Lucy had decorated with wildflowers and ribbons. There was music and dancing, and Ben held Lucy close as they swayed to a fiddle tune, feeling like the luckiest man alive. "Happy?" Lucy asked, her head resting against his chest. Happier than I ever thought possible, Ben said honestly. You gave me back my life, Lucy. You gave me back myself. No, Lucy said, pulling back to look up at him. You did that yourself. I just helped you see it was possible. They spent their wedding night in the apartment above the bakery, and it was perfect in its simplicity. They lay together afterward, wrapped in each other's arms, talking quietly about the future. When will we move to the ranch? Lucy asked, tracing patterns on Ben's chest. I am closing on the property next week, Ben said, but the house needs a lot of work before we can live there. I was thinking we could spend the next few months fixing it up while you finish training Sarah to run the bakery. I have been thinking about that, Lucy said. What if we did not sell the bakery? What if we kept it and Sarah ran it for us? We could still own it, still be part of it, but our main focus would be the ranch. That is a brilliant idea, Ben said, kissing the top of her head. You are a brilliant woman, Mrs. Harrison. I like the sound of that, Lucy said. Mrs. Harrison, Lucy Harrison. It suits you, Ben said. They moved to the ranch in July, after spending months restoring the old house. Ben had poured his heart into the work, rebuilding walls and floors, replacing windows, making everything sturdy and beautiful. Lucy had helped, painting walls and hanging curtains and turning the empty house into a home. The ranch itself needed even more work. The fences were down, the barn was half collapsed, and the land had been neglected. But Ben hired help and threw himself into the work with a passion he had not felt since before his father died. This time was different, though. This time he had Lucy beside him, encouraging him, believing in him, reminding him on the hard days that they were building something together. By their first anniversary, the ranch was thriving. They had a small herd of cattle, 3 horses, and chickens that Lucy tended with the same care she had given to her bakery. Ben had become known throughout the territory as an honest rancher and a skilled carpenter, and people sought him out for both work and advice. One evening in late summer, as they sat on the porch watching the sun set over their land, Lucy took Ben's hand and placed it on her stomach. There is something I need to tell you, she said, her eyes sparkling. Ben's heart leaped. Lucy, are you? Yes, she said, laughing at his expression. We are going to have a baby. Ben pulled her into his arms, overwhelmed with joy and gratitude and a love so fierce it almost hurt. A baby, he repeated, wonder in his voice. We are going to have a baby. Are you happy? Lucy asked, though she was smiling like she already knew the answer. Happy does not even begin to cover it, Ben said. He kissed her softly, then dropped to his knees and pressed his face against her still flat stomach. Hello, little one, he whispered. Your mama and papa love you so much already. Lucy ran her fingers through his hair, and when he looked up at her, he saw tears on her cheeks. What is wrong? He asked, concerned. Nothing is wrong, Lucy said. I am just thinking about how far we have come. A year and a half ago, we were 2 people struggling to make it through each day, and now look at us. We have a home, a ranch, a future, and soon we will have a family. It is all because of you, Ben said, standing and pulling her close. You believed in me when I could not believe in myself. You saw the man I could be, and you loved me into becoming him. We saved each other, Lucy said. I was alone and struggling too, remember? I was terrified that my bakery would fail, that I would end up with nothing. But then you came into my life, and suddenly I had a partner, someone who believed in me the way I believed in you. We built this life together, Ben, both of us. Their son was born in March, a healthy baby boy with his father's blue eyes and his mother's dark hair. They named him William, after Ben's father, and called him Billy. Ben held his son for the first time with shaking hands, marveling at the tiny fingers and the perfect features, and he made a silent vow that this child would grow up knowing he was loved, knowing he was wanted, knowing that his father would always be there for him. Lucy recovered quickly from the birth, and she took to motherhood with the same capable grace she brought to everything else. Ben watched her nurse their son, singing soft lullabies, and he fell in love with her all over again. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. They worked the ranch together, Ben handling the cattle and the heavy labor while Lucy managed the chickens and the garden and kept their home running smoothly. Billy grew from an infant into a toddler, learning to walk on the front porch and chasing chickens around the yard. The bakery in town continued to thrive under Sarah's management, providing a steady additional income. On Billy's second birthday, as they celebrated with cake Lucy had baked and presents Ben had made with his own hands, Ben looked around at the life they had built and felt a gratitude so profound it brought tears to his eyes. This was what he had been searching for during all those lost months at the bottom of a bottle. This sense of purpose, of belonging, of being part of something bigger than himself. That night, after Billy was asleep and they were lying in bed together, Ben pulled Lucy close and said, "Do you remember what you told me that first day, when I said I did not know if I could believe I was worth saving?" "I told you to let me believe it for you," Lucy said softly. "Until you could believe it yourself." "I believe it now," Ben said. "I believe I am worth something. I believe I can be a good husband and a good father and a good man. But Lucy, I need you to know that even though I believe it now, I will never forget that you were the one who saw it first. You were the one who had faith in me when I had no faith in myself." Lucy turned in his arms so she could see his face in the moonlight streaming through their window. "I always knew you could do it," she said. "From that very first day, when you stopped to help me pick up my packages even though you were in pain and probably wanted nothing more than to be alone, I knew you had goodness in you. I knew you were worth saving." "You saved me," Ben said, his voice thick with emotion. "And then you taught me how to save myself." "That is what love does," Lucy said. She kissed him softly. "It gives us the courage to become who we are meant to be." They had 2 more children over the next few years, a daughter they named Rose and another son they named James. The ranch continued to grow and prosper, becoming one of the most successful in the region. Ben became known not just for his ranching skills but for his willingness to help others. He made it a point to look out for men who were struggling the way he once had, offering them work and a chance to prove themselves. "You are giving people what Lucy gave you," one of the ranch hands said to him once. "I am trying to," Ben said. "Everyone deserves someone who believes in them. Everyone deserves a second chance." Lucy's bakery became a la Junta institution, and she often went into town to help Sarah with special orders or to teach baking classes for young women wanting to learn a trade. She never forgot what it was like to struggle, to pour everything you had into a dream and hope it would be enough. She used her success to lift up other women, offering advice and support and sometimes financial help to those who needed it. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Ben surprised Lucy with a special gift. He had been working on it in secret for months, and when he finally revealed it, Lucy cried with happiness. It was a beautiful wooden sign, carved and painted with care, that read Harrison Ranch founded 1878, restored 1879. Below that, in smaller letters, it said, "Built on faith, love, and second chances." "Do you like it?" Ben asked, suddenly uncertain. "It is perfect," Lucy said. "It is absolutely perfect, because that is what this place is. It is proof that people can change, that love can heal, that believing in someone can give them the strength to believe in themselves." They hung the sign at the entrance to their property, and it became a landmark in the area. People would point to it and tell the story of Ben Harrison, the man who had lost everything and then found his way back through the love of a good woman. But Ben always corrected them. It was not just her love that saved me, he would say. It was her belief. She believed I could be better, and that belief gave me the courage to try. As their children grew, Ben and Lucy made sure to teach them about the value of second chances, about the importance of believing in people, about the way love and faith could transform lives. They told their children the story of how they met, of how Ben had been at his lowest point, and Lucy had seen something in him worth saving. "Your father is the bravest man I know," Lucy would tell them, "because he did the hardest thing anyone can do. He looked at himself honestly, admitted he needed to change, and then did the work to become someone new. And your mother is the wisest woman I know," Ben would add, "because she understood that people are not defined by their worst moments. She understood that everyone deserves someone who believes in them." Billy grew up to be a fine young man who took after his father in both looks and temperament. He loved the ranch and worked hard alongside Ben, learning everything his father could teach him. Rose was spirited and creative, showing an early talent for baking that made Lucy beam with pride. James was the family's peacemaker, always finding ways to make everyone laugh and keeping the household running smoothly. On a warm evening in May, 20 years after that fateful day when Ben had stumbled into Lucy outside the general store, they sat together on the porch of their ranch house, watching their grandchildren play in the yard. Billy had married a schoolteacher named Emma, and they had 2 little ones of their own. Rose had taken over the bakery and expanded it into a restaurant. James was studying law, determined to help people who could not afford legal representation. "We did well," Lucy said, her hand in Ben's, both of them showing the silver of age in their hair but still strong and healthy. "We did better than well," Ben said. "We built something beautiful. We created a legacy." "Do you ever think about how different things could have been?" Lucy asked. "If we had not run into each other that day, if I had not asked you to help me, I think about it sometimes," Ben admitted. "And it terrifies me. I was so close to losing everything, Lucy. I was so close to giving up completely, if you had not seen something in me worth saving." "But I did," Lucy interrupted gently. "And you did the work. You became the man I knew you could be. Actually, you became even better than that. You became the man you were always meant to be." Ben turned to her, this woman who had been his salvation, his partner, his love for more than 2 decades. "I spent years thinking I was defined by my failures," he said. "By losing the ranch, by the drinking, by letting everyone down. But you taught me that we are defined by what we do after we fail. We are defined by whether we give up or keep trying. And you never gave up," Lucy said. "Even when it was hard, even when you wanted to, you kept choosing to be better. That is who you are, Ben Harrison. You are the man who never gave up." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of orange and gold. Their grandchildren's laughter filled the air, and the scent of Lucy's roses bloomed on the evening breeze. The ranch stretched out around them, prosperous and peaceful, a testament to what could be built on a foundation of faith and love. "Thank you," Ben said finally, quietly. "Thank you for believing in me when I could not believe in myself. Thank you for seeing the man I could become. Thank you for loving me into being him." Lucy leaned her head against his shoulder, and Ben wrapped his arm around her, holding her close. "Thank you for being brave enough to accept that belief," she said. "Thank you for doing the work, for becoming the man you are, for building this beautiful life with me. We saved each other, Ben. We gave each other the gift of hope." As the stars began to emerge in the darkening sky, Ben Harrison thought about the journey that had brought him here. From the lowest point of his life, drunk and broken and certain he was beyond redemption, to this moment of peace and fulfillment. It had not been easy. There had been days when staying sober felt impossible, when the weight of his past mistakes threatened to crush him. There had been setbacks and struggles and moments of doubt, but through it all, there had been Lucy. Lucy with her unwavering faith, her steady love, her absolute certainty that he was worth saving. She had given him the most precious gift one person could give another. She had believed in him when he could not believe in himself. And that belief had been enough to keep him going until he could learn to believe in himself too. Now, surrounded by the life they had built together, Ben understood that redemption was not a destination but a journey. It was the choice, made over and over again, to be better today than you were yesterday. It was the willingness to accept help when you needed it, to be honest about your failings, to keep trying even when you felt like giving up. And it was so much easier to make that choice when you had someone beside you who believed you could do it. Someone who saw your potential even when you could not see it yourself. Someone who loved you not despite your flaws but through them, helping you become the person you were meant to be all along. Lucy had been that person for him. And he had spent every day since trying to be that person for her in return, believing in her dreams, supporting her goals, loving her with everything he had. Together, they had built something that would outlast them both: a family, a legacy, a proof that love and faith could transform lives. "I love you," Ben said into the gathering darkness. "I love you too," Lucy replied. "Always have, always will." And as they sat together on the porch of the ranch that had been lost and then found again, watching their family flourish around them, Ben Harrison knew with absolute certainty that he had become the man Lucy had always seen in him. Not because he was perfect, he would never be that, but because he had never stopped trying to be worthy of her faith in him. And that, he thought, was enough. That was everything.